So let's talk about hummingbirds and what we should do with our feeders now. A lot of people think, well, the summer's over, the migration is ended, and I'll take my feeders up. What do you say to that?
No, no. The migration is still underway. If you're further north, most of the birds are out of there. The vast majority of them are. Further down south, like here, most of the migration's over with. There's some stragglers still moving through. We may see some more coming through into maybe mid-November. That's pretty late for them. But if they're coming through, you don't want to have taken a feeder down. If you've got 5 or 6 feeders out, take most of them down if you want to and clean them up to store them. But leave 2 feeders out so they're visible. And if a bird comes by, a straggler, a late arrival, they've got some food. The sides, those are not the only birds that are here. In the East Coast, we have mostly ruby-throats. They all move to the south. In the west, there's other birds, more species than here, all moving to the south, going down to Central America. But especially here in the east and mostly the southeast, a lot of the birds in the west will move into the southeast for the winter and not go down to Central America. So if you leave a feeder out, you've got a chance of seeing one of these birds and perhaps helping it when it comes to overwinter in South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and in some cases, Michigan. We've seen birds and had birds reported spending winter over there. They have a better chance of survival in the southeast. You have a better chance of seeing them if you leave a feeder out for them.
Okay, so that brings to mind another question for you about hummingbirds. I understand that you've had the pleasure of having a hummingbird come and light on your finger. Tell us about how you could possibly do that. I would love that.
It takes a little patience. It's not that hard to do, but you have to be patient. If you get them coming to a feeder, on a deck or out in the yard on a pole, just get a chair, make sure you're comfortable, sit 5 or 8 feet away and be still. They'll come to the feeder. Get a little closer to the feeder. Give them some time. Late afternoon is a good time to do this when they really want to tank up before they go to bed. Maybe after 4 o'clock, the 5 o'clock range when you're seeing that afternoon burst of activity. And then keep encroaching in their territory. They'll run away. They'll come back in a few minutes wanting to feed. This may take a day. It may take 2 or 3 afternoons. Just go ahead and get the feeder, hold it up, prop your arm up on the arm of the chair so it doesn't move a lot. You won't get tired of holding it. And just wait. And don't look right at the bird. Look off to the side. Birds tend to recognize eyes. But just avoid them, and they'll come back in a little bit. They'll start with the feeder. Let them get comfortable doing that. Don't let them drink too much. They'll tank up, go away, and not come back. So as soon as they get their bill in, take a sip or two, wiggle the feeder, or look at them, let them go away and come back. It's just a little process of getting used to coming, spooking them off so they don't get filled up, so they'll come back. And then you just come up with a hand, with a small feeder, and put your hand right there. I use something like this, and a small feeder, so it don't wiggle too much, and they'll eventually come and finally just sit down on your finger. And you got them. Once they get used to doing that, they'll keep doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's got to be fascinating. Do you remember the first time you did it?
No, I've done it a lot.
Now you're so used to it?
Yeah. But we did it just to see if it could be done, because you see this, you hear about it, so, it really wasn't that hard. I think it took me maybe an hour. It was that quick. I would say it would be that quick for everybody, but there was a lot of birds, they were hungry, and it wasn't hard at all. It's like, they'll just do this, and I got my wife to do it, and it was on her finger, and we've shown some other people that, you can do this. Of course, you don't want to try to catch them or anything, but you can certainly let them sit on your finger.
That's neat. That's so neat. So, do you, you've also talked about how your wild birds have gotten really comfortable with you. Like when you go out to feed them, they almost start telling you, like, hurry up and feed us, right? They don't get scared and fly away like they
not as much. Once they get used to the situation, this is their yard, their feeders. You're just an intruder sometimes. They'll spook off the feeders, but if you stand still for a few minutes, they'll start coming back. We sit on our back porch, 7 feet from the railing where several feeders are. You walk out there, most of them, or perhaps with the exception of white-breasted nuthatches, are a little more tame than a lot of birds. They'll rush off and run over the trees, and then you just sit there and be still for a few minutes. They start coming back. I could even sit, we could be having a conversation, they'll just ignore you and start eating.
Yeah.
And the hummingbirds, of course, sometimes will do a flyby just to check you out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to sit there and watch the birds that close.
So that's really great that you can, keep your feeders out is that throughout most of the United States or just the southeast where you can keep your feeders out and at least see maybe a few hummingbirds? Like what parts of the United States could you do that in?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
Everywhere. Yeah.
Wow.
Just, there might not be a bird. Your chances of seeing a bird in the wintertime are pretty low.
Yeah.
But it's possible because a lot of the birds, like I said, a lot of the birds in the west, and I suspect the ruby-throats in the east, don't all go south. Something's wrong with the wiring, or maybe something's right to preserve the species. Some of them will go maybe west. Some of them may go north. Probably won't survive. But the ones that go maybe west maybe end up in California and survive in a mild climate and come back here for the breeding season. That happens because here in Georgia, we have now 12 or so species recorded to be in this state, 11 of which are in the wintertime, are western species that are here during the winter and spend the winter here, survive and come back. We know this because a lot of them captured and banded with a professional bander. And then the next year you see a bird at the same person's feeder and you pick it up and there it is with the band on it. And you see this bird repeat this for 3, 4, 5 years. So you know this is what that bird is supposed to do. So you got a chance of seeing this. So keep a feeder out all winter.
And you keep a couple of hummingbird feeders out, don't you?
Oh, yes.
And have you done the banding? You do the banding, right?
Yes, I don't have a license to band. I go with the professional banders who do have the federal permits to trap and band the hummingbirds. And I was fortunate enough to be early on the process of trying to find out what these birds are doing and start reporting that there's birds here in the wintertime. And everybody says, no, they can't be. Oh, they're going to die. And to find out they weren't the species that's normally here, they were western species. And that's how we ended up having our 12 or more species in Georgia. And our one normal species is one of the rare birds in the wintertime, because for the most part, they're out of here.
How do they survive? They're so tiny. It takes so much fuel for them to just get through the day. How do they survive during the cold?
You have to remember, or you have to realize, that they don't just drink sugar water. There's not really any nutritional value there. It's pure energy. So what do they eat? It's not sugar water, it's insects. These little guys are very good at hawking insects, gnats and little flies, and especially spiders. They'll grab them and eat them. So I was fortunate enough to be at a banding. Somebody reported a hummingbird. It was probably in December or January. It was very cold. There was still some snow on the ground next to the house. And we went out to see this hummingbird coming to a feeder. And I was over by the side of the house, out of the way, waiting on the bird. And I realized it's about 34 degrees outside. And there was gnats flying around next to the side of the house by the bushes. Oh, they're warm. They're fine.
Yeah.
That's what this bird's also eating.
Right.
These guys are here, and the birds know how to find them.